From Bethany Community Christian Church of Sedalia, North Carolina comes Fill My Cup Ministry at fillmycupspace.com, featuring Bethany's senior pastor, the Honorable Dr. Henry L. Simmons.
We celebrate Dr. King's birthday tomorrow. Now, why is this important to us as a Christian church? Because something was awfully wrong in this country. And God wanted to put an end to it. And he reached among his family, God's very own family, the church, and he lifted one up. His name was Martin Luther King. And God put him on a job. And we're going to talk about today how God reached out and grabbed Abraham and put him on a job. And we're going to compare how God reached out and grabbed Martin Luther King and put him on a job. Let me set the tone for it before we sing. Let me set the tone for it. The tone goes like this. There was a woman. The people, the civil rights people, were all looking for somebody who could make a test case before the Supreme Court to break down the Jim Crow laws in the South. But every time they would try to get somebody, it would be somebody who did not qualify. He was either a drunk or a thief or whatever. They needed somebody so they could take to the Supreme Court. In other words, they wanted somebody to sit on the bus and not get up so they would get arrested so the case can go to the Supreme Court. But every time there was somebody who wouldn't get up, either somebody who was drunk and didn't understand or somebody who did a lot of wrong things, they couldn't find nobody. Then God had the little lady, little demure female, cute little person, go to church every Sunday. And she was coming from her domestic work, and she was tired. And she wasn't trying to do a protest or anything. She just didn't feel like getting up. So when the crowd came in at 5 o'clock, the men would get on the white people would get on the bus, and they would move the sign to say, colored back till they can get all the seats covered. And as a consequence, you could have a bus full with all the black people standing. And that was the law. They could move that sign as they got on the bus. Well, the lady sit down in the right place that said colored. But as the bus got full, the sign moved behind her. And the guy stood there waiting for her to get up after he moved the sign. She said, I'm not getting up. The bus driver stops the bus. Says, oh, you're going to get up. She said, I'm not getting up. He said, well, I'm going to have to call the police. She said, call whoever you got to call. I'm not getting up. Thank you, sweetheart. But we're not preaching quite yet. I'm setting the tone for the sermon. She said, I am not getting up. And as a consequence of that, they called the police. The police took her to jail, testing the Jim Crow law. And that was when the ministers of Birmingham came together. So y'all, we finally got a case that we could take. We need a preacher to represent. And Martin Luther King was one of the newest preachers in Birmingham. He had just left his dad's church, just got his doctorate, and they had given him a church in Birmingham. And all the other preachers said, no, man, I ain't gonna do it. Get that new preacher, get that new preacher Martin, send him down there. And that's how Martin was chosen. Dr. King was chosen by the other preachers thinking that they passed it on to a young person that didn't know to not take it. And as a consequence, God lifted that man up. So what we're going to look at today, and we're going to look at God using Abraham and God using Dr. Martin Luther King. But the whole purpose of the sermon is not to get you to get so caught up on Abraham and so caught up on Martin Luther King. It is for you to recognize that God has a job for you. God has a plan for your life. I don't care how old you are right now. God has a plan for your life. And God can use you if your heart and your spirit is ready to receive God into your life. God can do it. So the key thing now is, as we go over these two people, one is biblical character and one is one that grew up just a generation ahead of us. And we'll see how God works in the affairs of his people from 3,000 years apart, how God works in the affairs of his people. And God does it in his own way. And after that, and Abram journeyed going on still toward the south. And there was, make note, a famine in the land. And Abraham went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. Let me paraphrase a little bit of that before we read the next section. Abraham comes to the place called Bethel, and it was named Bethel because he said, this is a place I met the Lord. Bethel. The name of God was El. So Bethel, there's a lot of churches named Bethel. It's a place of the Lord. That's what it was called. So he built an altar and named the place Bethel because he said, surely God is in this place. So he built an altar and he called upon God, which means he worshiped the Lord. That was his church. That was his place of worship. He called on the name of the Lord in Bethel. And then a famine came. It was very grievous. So Abraham decided to go to Egypt. God told him to come to Canaan. God didn't tell him to go to Egypt. But he went to Egypt because it was a bad famine. See, he said, got to do something about this. We got to leave. It's getting too hot here. So Abraham goes to Egypt. Now let's go to 12:20, and we're going to read down to 13:4. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him. Now what had happened? Abraham had got down in Egypt and told a tale. Can I say that? Told her. He prevaricated. How about that? He misled. He told Pharaoh that his wife was his sister. And Pharaoh took his wife and put her in his harem. Then Pharaoh realized that was that man's wife. He said, why'd you do this? You didn't tell me that was your wife. And he put him out. See, sometimes we do wrong and we don't even have to correct it. God will sometimes cause situation, put you out. And Abraham didn't have to make a decision. Pharaoh said, you leaving, and gave him all of the goods that he had and let him leave safely with his goods. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him that they sent him away and his wife and all that he had. And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him unto the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle and silver and gold. And he went on his journey from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hai, unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And there was Abram called on the name of the Lord. May God add a blessing to his read word. Now, in short order, Abraham was told to go to Canaan. He got to Canaan. Times got hard. A famine came. That means there was little food and bad weather and whatever. It was a famine that prevented him from living a life that he was accustomed to. So he said, they're doing okay down in Egypt, so I'm going to go down in Egypt. And he went down there and told a big tale to get set up down there. And when Pharaoh finds out that Abram has told him a story, he told his men, get him out of here. Sometimes God will put you out. Sometimes God knows what to do. He put you out and put him out. He went back. And what did the Bible say? He went back to Bethel where he was at the beginning. Back to the altar that he's at first. And the Bible said he called on the name of the Lord. So the scenario I want you to see is this. God called us to do something. We start off to do it. It get rough. Things get a little rough. People talking about you now. Can't get along with nobody. Everything get crazy. What's the first thing you want to do? I'm quitting. I'm going. It's too rough here. It's too bad. I'm going on. It's better down in Egypt. Let me go down to Egypt. How many of us have gone to Egypt? When God then gave us something to do, it then got hard. People laughing at you. People talking about you. They saying mean things about you. But you go to Egypt because it's a little easier. Go on to Egypt. God will put you out. He put you out of Egypt. Put him out. There he wound up back at Bethel. And that's why I'm trying to get you to see today is that some of us, most of us, all of us need to go back to Bethel where we first met the Lord. Go back to where God first knocked on the door and said, I am the Lord. And that's where we need to go. Go back to Bethel. How many of us then got off track, then went out and then did all kind of things, messed up your life, children's life, everybody else's life? It's time to come back to Bethel. Time to go back to where God first saw you. When you grew up in the little church and everything was okay. Now it's time to go home. God still got a work for you to do. God got people that you can help save. God got people that you need to know. But you got to come back to Bethel. Do we all got to be like Abraham, got put out? That get put out and got nowhere to go. The man told me he was at the club one night and they said, they were blinking the lights, mean you got to leave here. They said, you ain't got to go home, but you got to leave here. You know some of us that messed up home? Some of us has messed up home. Now, when he went back to Bethel, now what Martin Luther King was doing, he was asking this great nation, the United States of America, he was telling her, you need to go back to Bethel. You came here looking for religious freedom. You came here saying that all men are created equal and that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and you had a boatload of slaves. You need to go back to Egypt. You need to go back to Bethel. Your creeds say that. You say that God we trust. Your creeds say that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And and Martin Luther King would say, that was your Bethel, and you have left Bethel. You need to go back to Bethel. I'm not asking you to do nothing crazy. I'm not asking you to give these people something special. I'm saying just honor your own words. You said they were equal. How can you make a slave out of them? How can you do that? That's what he was saying. That's all Martin was saying. Martin said, you go back to Bethel. So God used Martin to speak to a nation. Who would have dreamed that this little boy, he was a preacher's boy? You know how they talk about PK, preacher's kids? Who would have thought this little boy under Big Daddy King over there in Atlanta? Then finally got him a church in Birmingham. Don't nobody even know him. His daddy rich, so he went to school till he got his doctorate. He wasn't like me. I had to pay for mine myself. This boy laid back in the dormitory and got his. Point I'm trying to make, he had no idea that there was a work ahead of him. How many of us don't know what God is doing in our lives right now? The test we're going through right now will determine where we be in the next 5 years. What is the test? Some people think the test going to be when they come in, when the teacher come in and say, okay, everybody, get your blue books out. We're going to have a quick test. No. God don't do his test like that. He don't warn you that a test is coming. What God say is keep your eyes, look for him. He said, call on him while he's near, while he may be found. God ain't going to come in and say, okay, this is a test. Let me see what you're going to do. What he did, how did he break in on Job? Job, all your horses are dead. All your cows are gone. Oh, your whole family just died. Did nobody tell Job this is just a test? His wife said, baby, what you gonna do? He said, naked I was when I came into this world, and naked when I leave. Blessed, thank you, God. Blessed is the name of the Lord. Y'all hear me? That's how the test come. Oh, so they done took something from you. They done took something from you and did you wrong. Yes, they done did you wrong. I preached the other Sunday. I have been done wrong. I mean, welcome to the club. They done mistreated you, done lied on you. You think they didn't lie on Jesus? You think they didn't lie on him? They spit in his face. Now, how many of us can take a spit in the face? I'm warning you now, don't be trying here spitting on. I warn you, don't come catching me after church and spit on me now. I ain't Jesus. I'm not Jesus, so don't try that. The point is, how many of us can stand and get spit on? No, ain't too many of us. They spit on him. And somebody said when the priests were talking to him, said they slapped him upside the face. Say, shut up. They said, we don't need to hear no more. Blasphemy! Thinks he's God. And men and women, the Bible said, will do you wrong, thinking they doing God a favor. Now, back to this story. All Martin wanted to do is say, look, you guys came over here saying you wanted to be free. You came over here saying you wanted religious freedom. Matter of fact, a whole group of you came over calling yourself Puritans, Mennonites. I mean, I could name 10 or 15 different groups came over, major movements. The Amish, the Mennonites, I can't think of all the names, but it was only 2 religious groups that stood up for abolition, for the abolishment of slavery. Only 2 religious groups. Ain't that something? Point I'm trying to make, Martin was pointing it out that America, to receive the blessing that God had rightfully for her, she has to go back to Bethel. Now let's do with the Martin story. When the little lady refused to get up, did she know that she would be the spark that would start a fire that nobody could put out? Did they have any idea? Oh, she told them when they said they were going to go to court for it, and they got the lawyers, even the white lawyers came down from the South, from the NAACP Defense Fund to work with her. She said, oh, I don't want to be in all of this. They said, well, we'll pay you. Just do what we tell you to do. That little lady, she's sitting in a mini courtroom till that thing kept rising, going all the way up to the Supreme Court. And when they got to the Supreme Court, the court said, like Martin Luther King had said, what do your creed say? Do you say all men are created equal? Is that what y'all say? Let's live up to it. God can come into your life and have such a small thing for you to do. But if you do it with the right attitude, knowing that you are a child of God and that God is your protector and God is your guide. Do y'all know, with all of the hatred and the bombing of the 3 kids that were in Sunday school and all this going on, this lady lived a ripe old age, died of natural causes. Who would have thunk it? Medgar Evers was killed. They were shooting in A&T and all of this. And this woman is the one with the spearheaded the whole thing. She was sitting in the booth at the State of the Union address for the last 20 years. She was sitting there with the president. Y'all hear me? She sat there under Clinton. She sat there under Obama. She sat there under both the Bushes and under Jimmy Carter. Don't tell me what God can't do. God worked that thing through. So the point is that I don't want you to leave thinking that God ain't working in your life. That woman didn't know when she went to work that day she was going to be on national TV before the week was over. She had no idea she would be sitting up there with the president, with the first lady, Miss Jimmy Carter's wife. He was sitting up there with Sister Bush. She was. Do you know it was almost a national holiday when that woman died? Everybody knew her. I got a picture of her in my office. My picture wasn't that. She was so fantastic. My picture was that she was a symbol of what God can do in the lives of his children. God can do it in your life. He can take one of them kids you got and make it. You could be sitting down like Obama's mother, his grandmother. Obama's grandmother. They had no idea this little boy from this African man would be the president of the United States. They had no idea. what God can do. And God can do it. He can do it. He can start to work in your life. And sometimes you think, oh, my life is over. I done messed this up. I done messed that up. And then all of a sudden, God throw a grandchild on you. Can you handle this? Do you know that the priest, Eli messed up with his boys. God told Eli, said, look, I'm going to take this thing from you. And them two kids you done raised, you done put them above me. I'm going to take them all from you. And there'll be another one sitting in the priest's chair with your name on it. I'm going to take them from you. But what else did God do after he told Eli that his name is going to be cut off from the priesthood and his kids going to be taken away? When little Samuel was born, God told Samuel's mother, said, take him, when you wean the little boy, once he's weaned, take him to the temple and give him to Eli. Y'all hear me? Eli done messed up, a total wreck of his life. But God said, take that boy to Eli. He told me to take him to Eli. The point I'm making on this story, we get ready to end the story. I want you to know that God raised Eli, even though God saw Eli had messed up. God knew that when Eli realized how bad he had messed up, that Eli was ready to do God's will. Do you know Eli raised the first prophet of Israel? It wasn't his boy, but he raised that boy right. He raised him right. Messed up his own children. That's what makes me feel good. Because I know I messed mine up. I just wasn't right. I didn't get saved fast enough or soon enough. And I know I did a lot of wrong things with my children. And sometimes I just break down and cry when I realize how stupid I was, or how crazy I was, or how far from God I was. When I could have did some good things for my children. I could have took them to Sunday school. I could have did all the things. I couldn't take them to Sunday school until I found out where God was. Praise the Lord. My wife would take them to Sunday school all the time. She said they looked right and they was sitting in church one day and they looked back and saw me back there. They almost had a fit. What? The game must be done with. We don't know what did happen. How he get up here? And come to find out, her and her pastor had been praying on me for months. But God is a good God. And God will give you that second chance. He'll give you that third chance. See, God is not keeping us around here for nothing. Don't you think for one moment. I don't know what he's doing in your life. I ain't trying to get in your life. All I'm telling you is that God is working his plan. And when God finishes working, you ain't going to have to worry about nothing. God will take care of you. You know, it took me a long time. I had to listen to my wife a lot. She had to tell me, just quit worrying about it. Quit worrying about it. Quit worrying about it. Sometimes you just want to worry because you think you got something to do with it. You ain't got nothing to do with this thing. You really ain't got nothing to do with it. God will work it out. He'll sure work it out. I'm going to tell you. And when I'm looking to see these kids in here, Mrs. Vermillion, do you know, and I'm not just speaking to her, I'm speaking to all of us that have children. God say that children are a heritage of the Lord. What does that mean? That means that God said, those are my young'uns. Those are my children. You just happen to be the one God chose to bring them into the world. That's why he said, be careful what you do with them. He said, what you do to the least one of these. You got to be careful. These are little human beings. And God going to use those kids. And you will be surprised at things that they take to adulthood. I went to a church. They had nothing for the kids. I started a hayride and a whole bunch of stuff for the after school. I mean, not for after school, but for the children of the church. All the things just built into everybody in the community came to the church for the hayride and the Halloween party and everything. I saw one of those kids the other day. He's an adult. He said, man, we used to do that every year. He only see two of them, but that's what he carried to childhood. That was his childhood memory. He remembered that from Martin's Chapel, how we had hayride and went through the graveyard and how we did things and how God was blessing his family. You would be surprised what they take to adulthood. So I would admonish you now to help your children make good memories. Help them to make good memories. We don't know what little Martin took to his adulthood, but one thing we know did happen. He was able to trust God even through the dark times. Now, some of you might not know he went through some dark times. Let me just share it. I'm going to end my sermon with his sermon. The night before his assassination, it was storming outside. And they were supposed to join the boycott of the labor, they were supposed to join the boycott of the garbage workers the next day. So they asked Martin to come down to Mason's Temple. That's the head of the Church of God in Christ in Memphis, Tennessee. The church can hold about 3,000 people. And it was storming, and Martin said, Abernathy, you go down there and talk to him. Ain't nobody going to be over there tonight. This weather too bad. A little later on, he gets a call from Abernathy. Abernathy said, King, you got to come, man. This place is over. There's people standing around the walls. They come to see you. They didn't come to see me. You need to get down here. So Martin shows up in the rain, the storm. The place was packed to the rims. Martin came up to the pulpit. He said, I asked God, I said, God, where do you want me to be? Said God turned it around and said, where would you want to be? If you could choose this day where you would be, where would you want to be? He said he thought about maybe I would have been back there with Abraham. Maybe that would have been a great time to be. And he started considering all the different places in history he could have been. And he wound up saying, Lord, I want to be right here where you got me. So he walks up to the podium with his Bible in his hand. And he goes over and finds Moses on Mount Nebo. And God tells Moses, say, you're not going to the promised land. But I'll let you see it. Look down there, you can see it. But you can't go. He put the Bible down. He said, as a people, we will get to the promised land. I may not be with you, but as a people, we will get there. And don't worry about me coming to the promised land. I've been on the mountaintop. I've seen the glory of God. Don't worry about me. If I leave tomorrow, I'll do what God called me to do. Don't worry about me. I've been to the mountaintop, he says. I've seen the glory of the Lord. That morning, about 10 o'clock, assassin Billy killed him. Don't tell me what God can do.
Thank you for watching Fill My Cup Ministry with the Honorable Dr. Henry L. Simmons. If this broadcast has been a blessing to you, please let us know. Dr. Simmons would be thrilled to hear from you. You may write us at Fill My Cup Ministry, P.O. Box 178, Sedalia, North Carolina 27342. Or you may call our toll-free number at 844-512-2671. You can also follow Dr. Simmons on Twitter, Vimeo, and of course on our website where you can feel free to donate to this ministry.